Hello there, my name is Billy and I am from Piano and Pies, and today we are looking at the newly released music theory paper from 2022. This is grade 1 and this is test A. And this video is going to go through every question. We're going to work out all the answers and we're going to hopefully work out how to get through each section and hopefully just give you some ideas. More than likely you're coming here just to look over some of the different aspects of the exam and make sure that you've got it right. And I'm going to show you ways on how you can learn a little bit more as well about all these different parts of the exam. Now that's over on my Patreon, but I'll mention that as we go. So what we'll do, we'll get stuck straight in. Now the total marks for the exam, you can see up here, is 75. And in this first section, the rhythm section, we've got 15 marks available. So what we're going to do is look straight in the first question. Now as it's rhythm, we're not too focused on pitch. So just before we even look at the question, looking here, the fact that this is a C and an A and an F isn't too important to us. It's to do with the fact that it's a crotchet, it holds for one beat. We've got a rest there. How long does that hold for? And you have to think about all these different things rather than the actual notes themselves, the pitches. This is all to do with rhythm. So the first question is hopefully quite simple. We have a circle the correct time signature for each of these bars. Now the first thing I like to do is look at the answers. I think, right, I've got 3/4, I've got 2/4 and 4/4. Those are the only options that this can be. So then I go into the actual question. Now the way I like to work it out is I try to group things into whole notes, especially when we've got 4 as the bottom number. So here is one whole beat, so there's 1, and I like to give it a little mark as well. Now this note here is a quaver, it holds for half, and this is a quaver rest, so that's half. So these two notes add up to 1. Now what's quite nice, especially with grade 1, you'll see lots of these. For this type of question, if you can see notes that are grouped together, 2 quavers like this, then you can see that's very clearly 2 halves, and that equals 1. Finally, we've got a crotchet and that holds for 1. And there's all the notes. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. Therefore, this is the answer. Looking at B, we have 2/4. We have common time, which is linked with 4/4. And we have 3/4. So we're looking for 2, 3 and 4. Basically the same as up here. Now, looking at this note here, there's 1. This is a dotted quaver note. And that is 3/4 of a beat. And this is a semi-quaver, there's a quarter. So these together, look, they're joined, they are 1 beat. So 1 plus 1 is 2, and there's our 2/4. So there's the answer there. Moving on to C, we have a crotchet note here, so there's 1. We have 1 at the end, and we have 1, 2, 3, 4 semi-quavers. Now, semi-quavers are quarter beats, 1, 2, 3, 4 of them. They add up to a whole. So there is 1. So we've got 1, 2, 3. And if I look at the answers, we've got a 3 there. So that has to be the answer. And there's the first part of the first question answered. Now, if that is something that you struggle with, I will be making, for my Patreon, an extra sheet that has some more of these examples. So let's say you struggle with this and you want some more ideas, then you can head on over to my Patreon page. There is an ABRSM, which is the exam board for this company. You can go over to my Patreon. There will be a certain tier, a £5 tier, where you can get a few PDFs and a few videos which will go over some of my examples that fit grade 1. So it means you get more time to figure out these ideas and get used to it. There's also an explanation video that's coming out, as well as a PDF with all the answers on it. So you've got extra content, all for £5. Anyway, we'll move on. We are now looking at 1.2, and this is saying add the one missing bar line to each of these 5 melodies. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So looking at the first one, the first thing we need to pay attention to is the time signature, which is in this case 2/4. And what we need to do is split the notes into 2 chunks. So a nice easy one here, this is 1 beat, there's another beat. You have now filled a bar, so we need to put a bar line after that note. And just to double check, this is 1 beat. That one there is a half, and you've got 2 quarters, so those are 2 semiquavers. A half plus a quarter and a quarter, they all add up to 1. So I've confirmed that the bar line is correct there. Let's go over B. Now B has 3/4, so 3 crotchet beats in the bar. So here's a tactic to use. Let's just say you're a bit confused with this dotted crotchet. It's 1.5 beats, but maybe that's a little bit tricky to kind of figure out and add up in your head. What you can do is work backwards. Look at the last note. That's 1 beat. That's nice and straightforward. Well, these are 2 halves. They're joined together, so we can see very clearly that's 1. So I've got 2 beats already. I need 1 more, and then I've got a bar. Look, there's 1. So there, I've got 1, 2, 3. So therefore, if I split that off, this must add up to a bar. And look, there's 1. That's a half. That's 1.5. That equals 2. And there's 2 plus 1, there's 3. And there we go. So you can work from the back if that helps. So let's use that method on this one here. So I need 4 beats in the bar. This one here at the back holds for 2. There's half a bar already. Dotted quaver and a semiquaver, that holds for 1 beat, so there's 1 there. I've got my 3 beats. I need 1 more to make 4/4. Look, there's my 1 beat. So all those notes there are 4. And then I've got my bar line, so that makes a whole bar there. We then have 1 beat, a 1 beat rest, a 1 beat and a 1 beat. There's 4 beats there. Rests are still included. Don't let them catch you out. Rests just hold for a certain amount of beats, just like all these notes. They try and put it in to trick you, but no, it's absolutely fine. Notice how we're not paying attention to the fact that all these have pitches. So we're not thinking E's, F's, G's or anything. It's not important. This is our rhythm section. So moving on to D, we need 2/4. So here we have a 1 beat note. We have 2 halves, so there's 1 beat. And look, I filled my 2. So the bar line must go there. Finally, looking down at E, we have 3/4. And what we need to do is get a 1 beat here. We have 2 quarters and a half, so that adds up to 1. And we've got a 1 beat there. There's my 3 beats. Bar line must go there. And there we go, that's that section done and dusted. So looking at 1.3, we need to tick 1 box to answer each question. And the first one, A, says how many quavers are there in a dotted minim? Now, hopefully you know dotted minims hold for 3 beats. And we talked about quavers, which are half a beat each. So we're saying how many of these halves do we need to get 3 beats? And the answer is going to be 6. So 6 halves add up to 3 beats. So we need to put a tick. Just be careful. Sometimes they will ask you to put crosses in questions later on. So just be very, very careful of that. So 1.4 says tick 1 box to show which bar is grouped correctly. Now, when it's in 4/4, we ideally want to group notes into wholes. So, for example, looking at this one here, we've got 1 whole beat there, which is lovely. So we can't group anything with this crotchet. Now, we have 2 semiquavers joined together, and then 2 semiquavers joined together here, but they're not joined together. Now, these, if they were grouped together, that would make a whole. So that makes me suspicious that this is incorrect, that this is the wrong bar. Now, this group of notes here adds up to 1, a half plus 2 quarters, and there's a full note. But this isn't wrote out correctly. Looking at this one, what they've done, if you have a look here, they've got the crotchet at the start, they've got the crotchet at the end. These 3 notes are the same as those 3 notes, but they have joined the semiquavers together. And if you count them up, a quarter plus a quarter plus a quarter plus a quarter equals 1 whole. So that is grouped correctly. Just to double check this one, what they've done is they've got the crotchet at the start and at the end. They've got the 4 semiquavers, but 2 of them are together, and then 2 of them are joined with a quaver, which is possible in certain bars, but not when it's in 4/4, not the way it is like this. So that is incorrect. So there's 1.4 done, and that's the first page. Let's move on to page 2. Now 1.5 says tick or cross each box to show whether the rests are correct or incorrect. So first things first, we need to know our time signature. We have 3 beats in the bar. And again, we're going to do that idea in 1.1 where we have to group and work out the order of the notes. So here, this is 1 beat, there's 1 beat, and now we have 3 semiquavers, 3 quarters. So this rest needs to add up to a quarter, and that is a quarter beat. So that means that is correct. In this bar, there is no rest, so we can't do anything with it. In this bar, we need to add up to 3 again. This one holds for 1. This one holds for 1, and this rest is a crotchet rest. So that is a 1 beat rest, and therefore that is correct. Now finally, we have this one here. Now that is a 2 beat rest, and we are in 3, so that is incorrect. So don't let that confuse you with the one that is on the top line, which would look a little bit like that. So yeah, that would be longer. This one is only for 2, so we are incorrect there. So 1.6, we need to tick one box which shows 4 notes written in order from the longest value to the shortest. So on this side, we need to have the longest note, and this is the shortest. So it's all to do with note duration. So they all start off with a minim note. So that has to be the longest. So we know that the first one is 2 beats. So anything else can't be longer than 2, otherwise it's incorrect. So this next one is a quarter. So, sorry, this is a half, should I say? I tell a lie. So this is a half. So yes, it's currently in order. This one though is a dotted crotchet. Now, hopefully you know dotted crotchets hold for 1.5. So we've gone shorter than longer. So this is incorrect. So we know that one is not right. We'll go to the second one. Well, that's our 2 beat note. This is 1.5. So we've got smaller, which is good. This is a quaver, which is just a half. Oh, sorry, I should have wrote 1.5 on that one. So this is 2, 1.5, a half, so we've got smaller. This now needs to be smaller than the half. And look, it's a semiquaver. Semiquavers are a quarter, which means this is correct. And this one must be incorrect because it's only 1 box. And there's the rhythm section done. So we're now moving on to pitch. And usually pitch, this is where we have to really pay attention to clefs. For the rest of the exam, they are going to try and use clefs in sneaky ways in different questions to try and catch you out. I'm going to try and point them out as well. Always look at your clefs from now on. That's one of the most important things I want you to take away from what we're doing now. What clef are you using? It's always, in grade 1, it's going to be treble and bass. So in pitch it says, tick one box to show the correct name of each note. Now here we are, we're in bass clef. Hopefully you're confident with your bass and treble clefs. If you're not, on my Patreon I've got a cheat sheet which helps you with all the treble and bass clef notes. That's on the ABRSM, the £5 tier. You can head off there to get that if you like. So this note here on the bass clef is a G note, and if you look here, there's G. So I'm going to tick that box. And if I accidentally thought it was a treble clef, that would be an E. And look, they've given E as an option. So it's very easy to go, oh, that's E, and give it a tick without thinking about the clef. So in B, we have bass clef again. But look, we've got 2 sharps. Maybe that is a bit of a fool's errand. Maybe they're just putting that there to try and, scare you or get you used to clefs, to key signatures. But we've still got to consider it. That's F and C sharp. So this note here is quite high up. So that if it was a note on the line, that would be C, but it's on top of the line just above, so that is a D, and look, there's D. So we're now looking at C. We have treble clef for once, good. And we're on that middle of the 5 lines. That is a B note, however, you can see there's a flat sign next to it. That is B flat. Now look, B's an option, but B flat, sorry, my printer's not very good. B flat is that one there. So that is the correct option there. Looking at D, we're back to bass clef now. So you've got treble clef and more than likely be very good at treble clef and maybe not so strong at bass clef. At least that's what I was like when I was learning. So we're back to bass clef, get into that idea of clefs. And we've got this here to think about as well. But again, we might not need it. We didn't in this example, but we do here. Because look, that's gone through the 4th line, the F line. And look, we've got a note on that 4th line, so it's F sharp. And look, they've given you F as an option, so you could very easily tick F, and that would be incorrect. But here we go, F sharp. So moving on, we're back to treble clef now, and we're on the bottom line. That's an E note. So yeah, first line is E. Again, my cheat sheet on Patreon will really help you out with these. We also have F here, which is bass clef, and this is the very top line. That is a note of A, and look, there we go, that's A. If it was treble clef, that would be an F note, and look, there's an F. So they're trying to trick you out. They're trying to say, hey, they're trying to get you to think about clefs a little bit more. So there we go. And finally, we're on G. This one here, treble clef, we've got a C note, but it's got the sharp sign, so that's C sharp. Finally on this page, we have tick the higher note of each of the pair of notes. So the higher note of each of the pair of notes. So treble clef here, we have an E natural, that's your natural sign. Maybe that doesn't come across well on the camera. It's supposed to look somewhat like that. So that's what symbol's there, E natural and E flat. Now E natural is higher than E flat, so I'm going to give that one a tick. Bass clef, we have an F, sorry, we have, so look, I said F there, I was thinking treble clef, so I had to look back. So bass clef, that's an A note, A natural. Then we've got an A sharp, so we know that A sharp is higher than A natural. So look, I nearly got caught out there. We are still on bass clef. We have a G flat. Look, I thought treble clef again. So bass clef, oh, what a day. We have a B flat and a B natural. So B natural is higher than B flat. Moving on to the last one, we have a treble clef. We've got a D sharp and a D natural. D sharp is always higher than D natural, so I'll give that one a tick. And there's page 2 done. So page 3, we have to tick the correct clef needed to make each of these named notes. So that, they're saying, is an E. Which clef do we need in order to make that? So if that was a treble clef, that would be a C note, so it's got to be the bass clef. So here we've got a sharp note on the very top line, and that's got to be an F sharp. So which one does it need to be? Hopefully you know that is the treble. Here is on the middle line, and it has to be a D. If it was the treble clef, that would be a B note, so it is bass. And on this one here, lowest line, it is a G note, and if it was treble, it would be an E note. However, bass clef, it makes it a G. So now we're moving on to the keys and scales section of the exam. And in this new part, it says tick one box to show the correctly written key signatures of D major. So, tick one box, so that's important. So, in D major, you've got to think, what sharps do I have? And the sharps that we have are F sharp and C sharp. Now, let's have a look for some F sharps and C sharps. The first one, we've got a treble clef with a C sharp and an F sharp. So, hey look, I've got it right. However, let's consult the other ones. Here we've got a treble clef. This is an A sharp and that's a D sharp, so that's incorrect. So we know that one, we don't want that one. This one has got an F sharp and a C sharp. F sharp, C sharp. So that one's technically also the same as that one, right? We'll come back to it. This treble clef here has an F sharp and a C sharp. F sharp and C sharp. So three of them have the same sharps. So what's the difference? This one has a C sharp then an F. This one has the opposite, F then C. This one has a low F sharp and a C sharp. It's important that you get the correct order of sharps. So it's always this F, so the highest F, and then the C afterwards, FC. You may know the phrase, Father Charles goes down and enters battle. That helps you with the order of the sharps. So this one is correct. As much as that is F and that is C, which is the same order as that, it has to be the higher line. So that is correct there. This one, a little bit more straightforward. It says, tick one box to show the correctly written key signature for F major. So have a think about F major. F major has one flat, and that is a B flat. So we're on bass clef for all of these. We were treble earlier. We've got to be thinking bass clef now. So in this one, technically, that is telling me that's a B flat, 'cause that position there, if there was a note there, that would be a B flat. However, that's in the wrong position. This bass clef, that note there on that line is a B, and it's a B flat. So up to now, I'm thinking, hey, this might be a good one. Bass clef here, this has got a sharp. Now, F has B flat, so this one we know is wrong. This one has a flat on the middle line. Now, if you think treble clef, that would be a B flat, but we're bass clef, so that's incorrect. So the only one that is really correct is this one here. As much as that one's a B flat, the correct position, just like with the other one, needs to be in its, well, correct position, and it's on this second line. So there's your B flat. So that is correct. B flat's always on that line on the bass clef. So we're now moving on to question 3.3. Tick 3 boxes to show which notes need an accidental to create a melody in the key of G major. So there's some really important wording in there. So hopefully you know that accidentals are sharps and flats and naturals outside of the key signature. So you wouldn't see, we see nothing there, but we need to write some sharps and flats in here. But which ones and why? So we need to create something in the key of G major. So this requires you to know what sharps and flats or anything are in G. Now in G there are F sharp notes. So that's what we're looking for. And we need 3 boxes to show which need an accidental, so which need a sharp sign. So we're looking for Fs. That's a G note, so that is technically in the key of G. This is, and we're in the treble clef by the way, this is an F. There's no accidental next to it, so we need an F sharp to be in the key of G major. So I'm going to give a tick on that one. That's an E, that's part of the key signature. That's a G, so is that. This is another F note. It's a lower F than that one. There's no accidental next to it, so we need to give it a tick. That's a D, so that's fine. E and G are fine. Ah, look, there's another F. This one holds for 2, that holds for a half. Doesn't matter in our case, we're not interested in its rhythm, but we're interested in giving it a tick because it needs a sharp to keep it in the key of G. And this is a G note, so that's fine. And look, we've got 3 ticks, so we're good. 3.4. So tick 2 boxes to show the 2 pairs of notes in this scale which are semitones apart. So a single semitone apart, should I say. So hopefully you know a semitone is the shortest distance between 2 notes. Now, a general tip is to try and get really good at visualizing a piano. Even if you're not a pianist, it's good to be able to visualize the notes on a piano because you can visually see the notes and the distances away from each other. If you're a guitarist, you may know that you can get the same note in different strings on the guitar. And visually that's quite hard to really spot, and it kind of transfers over poorly to music theory. I play guitar and piano, and anytime I think of music theory, I'm always thinking of my piano and visually thinking about the notes, and that just really helps me get to know the distances between notes. So we're looking for 2 boxes to show the 2 pairs. So we need to tick 2 boxes, which are semitones apart. So we've got bass clef going on here. We have a note of D and an E, so that is a tone apart. We've got E and F sharp, which is a tone apart. F sharp to G, there's a semitone. There are no notes in between those. We've got G to A, which is a tone. A to B, which is a tone. B to C sharp, which is a tone, and C sharp to D. C sharp and D are a semitone apart. It's a bit of a trick is, if you've got a major scale, which this is a major scale if you don't know, and basically the last 2 notes going back to the root note is always a semitone. And if you have to build a major scale and you haven't got a semitone at the end, you've made a mistake somewhere. So yeah, that is a semitone there. And there is the 3rd page. Right, here we go. So my printer's cut off the actual wording. So I think it says circle true or false for these questions. That's basically what it says. So here we go. There is 1 sharp in the key signature of G major. Now earlier on we actually talked about G major and I said F sharps and that was it. So yeah, that is true. So we're going to circle true. There is 1 flat in the key signature of C major. Now, more than likely, when you learn music theory or you learn an instrument, and you come to playing scales or writing scales, you learn about C major first. We know that C major has no sharps or flats, so that is false. For the C question, this is the 4th degree of the F major scale, of the scale of F major. So we've got to think quite a lot about this. First of all, we need to know confidently what the notes in F major are. So in F major, we have F, G, A, B flat, C, D, E, and then F. So the 4th degree, as in the 4th note in that scale, 1, 2, 3, 4, is a B flat. Looking here, we've got the bass clef, and this is a D. And D is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, so that's false. If you were to accidentally think that is treble clef, you would think, hey, that's a B. And if you weren't too sure about your flats, you think, oh, well, 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm seeing the letter B, but maybe you've forgotten about the flat. You might accidentally think, hey, that's correct, that's true. So that's a sneaky way of them trying to catch you out by putting it on that exact line. So D, we're in treble clef here. We've got a note of B here. This is the 6th degree of the D major scale. So let's try out the D major scale. We have D, E, F sharp, G, oh, that's not a very good F. We have D, E, F sharp, G, A, B, C sharp, and D. Let's count 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, look, B, if you can read my terrible handwriting, and that's B. We're true. Brilliant. So, 3.6 is all about ticking one box to show the correctly written scale of G major descending, and the boxes are actually just here, just my printer's not done it very well. So, all bass clef here, look, very careful to be watching out for that. So I'm going to look at this one. G major descending will still start with a G note. This first note in the bass clef, that ain't a G. If it was treble clef, it would be a G. And if you were to accidentally overlook that, you might be thinking, hey, this looks great, because if that was treble clef, this is G major, so you might tick that. However, bass clef, it's wrong. This one here, bass clef again, G, F sharp, G majors have F sharps in it, right? Like we talked about earlier. So we've got G, F sharp, E, D. This one has got a C sharp. Now C sharps aren't in the G major scale, so that one wrong. So therefore this is correct, but I want to double check. I always double check. G, F sharp, that's good. We've got the E, the D, the C natural, not like C sharp here. Then you've got the B, the A, and the G, so I know that is now correct. So, circling true or false, this is the scale of C major ascending. Now we're in treble clef. Now look, here's a classic example of them trying to fool you. We've just had 3 different ways of using the bass clef. 3 different examples, should I say. So your brain is in bass clef mode. If you were to think and overlook this and think bass clef, that would be C, D, E, F, G, and so on. That would be correct in bass clef. But because we're in treble clef, that is an A note. And the C major scale starts on a C. So that is false. But if you overlook the clefs, like I mentioned earlier, we're going to struggle. So yeah, that is treble clef, therefore this is incorrect. Finally, we are crossing 2 incorrect notes in the following scale. This is the F major descending. So we're in bass clef again. Look, we've swapped once more. This is F, that's an E, those are correct. We have a D flat note, that is incorrect. And look, it's telling me to cross. One of the first times I've actually had to use a cross. We have a C note, that's fine. B natural. Now in F major, like we said earlier, we need B flats, so B natural is incorrect. It is a B note we need, but it's flat, so that has to be flat, not correct. And look, we need 2, so therefore these must be correct, but we'll always check. A is correct, G is correct, and then it finishes on F. Therefore, we have corrected and sorted out that page. So we're now on the next page. We are at the interval section. The next question says, for each example, write one note to form the named interval. Your note should be higher than the given note. The key is D major. So it's quite interesting. The key is D major. So for the A section, it says an eighth or an octave. That's what the 8 for E stands for. Up from that note, that's a D note, and an octave is just the next highest of that letter. So D is there, because we're on treble clef. B has a bass clef, and we've got a D note here, and it's saying to go up a fifth. So a fifth up in the key of D major is A, and that is that note there. So on the top line. Looking at C, we've got a treble clef, and it's in a second up from D, which in the key of D major is E. Now E, it's going to be an interesting way of writing this. You could try and squeeze in here. However, it's probably best, in fact definitely best, to write it just to the side. So you can see here, I've just wrote it. Now, on these first two, I've wrote them above, which I believe should be absolutely fine. However, you could also write them just to the side. I don't think they'll mark you down either way. But when the notes are very close together, like this example, D to E, always writing close nearby, but not on top, because otherwise it might be hard to see what letter that is. So looking at D now, we have a bass clef with a D note, and it's saying a sixth. So the sixth in D major is a note of B. So B in the bass clef, that is sitting just above that fifth line, the top line. There's your sixth. Finally, we have E, which is the treble clef. We've got a fourth up from what is D, and that is your G note. Now, it's interesting that they never mentioned the third or the seventh, because in D major, the third would be an F sharp, so a sharp sign, and the seventh would be a C sharp. So it's important that you really acknowledge this, because if you were to write either F natural or C natural, you would have got it wrong. You need the sharp sign. They didn't do it in this example, but that might be the case in other papers. Speaking of other papers, this grade 1 test is paper A. If you have bought the actual booklets, then you will also know that there are test papers B, C and D. On my Patreon page, I will be working through all of those in due course. So you will get more examples of all of these, and maybe they use a different key, or they use the third and the seventh. So you can check out those videos on my Patreon. Anyway, moving on. So the next part says, tick one box to show the correct number of each interval. The key is C major, so thankfully no sharps or flats to worry about in this one. So in the first example here, we've got a bass clef, we have a C and a D. In C major, C to D, they're next door neighbours, they are a second, and we'll give that a tick. B, treble clef, we've got C here, and that's a C there. Now, we talked earlier about octaves being the same letter just higher up, and look, C to C, that's an octave, and look, there it is on the box there, so we give that a tick. We're now over to C here, we're on bass clef, we're on the C note, and we've got the note above it, which is G, and that is a fifth. There we go. And looking at D here, treble clef, this is another C note, so lots of C notes going on, hence the key. And this is an E note above it, so C, D, E, there's 3, and look, there's your third. Finally, E, bass clef. We've got a note of C again, and this note here is an A, and if you follow up the notes, C, D, E, F, G, A, there's your sixth, and there we go. So, relatively straightforward if you know your order of notes in a scale and in a key. And down at the bottom we have a tonic triad section, and it says circle true or false for each statement. So we've got some chords here, and it's in, is this statement true or false? So this first one here, we've got an F, A and a D. So that could be a D minor chord inverted. Let's see what the actual sentence is. This is the tonic triad of F major. Now the first two notes, F and A, are part of the F major tonic triad, but the highest note is a C in that case. Here we have D, therefore it is false. So it's really important that you know your triads, especially in a key. Now we've got bass clef for the next one. Excuse me, and this is the tonic triad of C major. Now C major, we're looking for C, E and G notes. Bass clef, that's a C, that's an E, that's a G. So we are absolutely true on that one. Now this is an interesting one. Again, designed to try and catch you out. This bottom one here, treble clef, so we're not in bass clef. This is saying the tonic triad of G major. Now, if we still had our bass clef hat on and we were thinking about that, that would be G, B and D, which is part of G major, G, B, D. So we could have accidentally circled true, but for treble clef, that is E minor, E, G and B. So similar notes, but different. So that is unfortunately false. And there we go, that's the page done. So the next page, we're on 5.2, again talking about triads. We have add one missing note to complete each triad, with the tonic as the lowest note. So that's really important, with the tonic as the lowest note. Use accidentals if necessary. So this first one is bass clef, we've got G major, and the first two notes are G and B. So in G major, you have notes of G, B, and D is then on top of that. In the bass clef, D is the note that's missing, so we've wrote it at the top. So the next one, we have bass clef and we have F major. And if we have this note here as an A, which is what it is in bass clef, we have a C, and we want an F note. Now, it might be very tempting to put it above here, but remember the tonic, which is just basically short code for that letter there, it has to be the lowest note. And in this case, the F goes below there. So yeah, you want to be careful of where you put it. Finally, we have treble clef for the C example, and it says D major. Now, D major is going to be very important here because we have D at the lowest, so that's the lowest note. We have an A at the top, but in between D and A, for D major, there is an F sharp. Sorry, that's my sharp symbol there. Not very good at writing sharps. So that's going to be in between. Just writing the F note isn't enough. If we write an F note, that makes it a D minor chord. So we then need to make it very clear that you've got an F sharp. So that one there, D major with the F sharp in it. 5.3 talks about the correct key for each tonic triad. So we now need to look at what this chord is and then essentially pick the key for it. So first one is bass clef. We have D, F sharp, A. It's actually the same as this, just in a bass clef, and that is a D major. So we need to circle D major. In the next one, this is treble clef. We've got notes of G, B and D. Those notes together bring out a G major chord, which is here. Treble clef again, C, E and G. You'll probably get to know those sets of notes really early on with music theory. That is a classic C major chord. Finally, we have bass clef here. We have F, A and C. And when you put those three notes together, we get the F major chord. So moving on to terms and signs, it's saying we have to pick one of the correct options for whatever the term means, or whatever this term is. So allegretto, it could be one of the following. So it says gradually getting slower, fairly quick, slow, gradually getting quicker. Now these are definitely incorrect. It's not slow, but yeah, it's the fairly quick option here. So what I do sometimes, if there's a certain Italian or Latin word that I'm not too sure of, and it comes to a multiple choice answer, I try and think which one is it not, and then that narrows it down if I'm not too sure. Here we have what is a crotchet symbol with an equals and an 88. What does that mean? Now it says 88 crotchet beats, 88 crotchet beats in a minute, 88 crotchets in one beat, that would be interesting, 88 crotchets in a bar. So they're all very kind of similar, but when you really think about it, some of them sound a bit daft. So 88 crotchets in one beat, that sounds a bit silly. It's the second option, 88 crotchet beats in a minute, often referred to as BPM. So here we have two different notes here with a dot below and above, and saying, what does that mean? We have either staccato detached, legato smooth, accent the note, staccato smoothly. And it is a staccato note, those are staccatos, which hopefully you'll be familiar with, but we've got two staccato options here. One that says staccato smoothly, staccato detached, and staccato is the detached one, so I'll give that one a tick. So further down we have PP, and the options are quiet, moderately loud, very quiet, and moderately quiet. And for PP, short for pianissimo, that is very quiet, and that one gets the tick. So I'm going to hold my hand up here and say I didn't know what this one meant. I'd not come across it at all, or maybe if I did, I've not remembered it. So I did a bit of Googling. So yeah, hold my hands up. I didn't know what this one was, and what it is to play in a singing style at the bottom. But if you didn't know this in exam, try and do what we did earlier by saying, what is it not? So repeat from the beginning is a repeat sign. So it's not that one. Gradually getting quieter, well, it's not that, because we have a term for that. We have at a medium speed, well, there's other terms for that, so it's probably not that. So you can kind of eliminate a lot of answers to then get to the right one. So there we go. And we're on to the last page. So this is the music in context. So look at this melody and then answer the questions that follow. Now there's two ways you can go about this. If you are pushed for time, maybe ignore looking at the music and just looking at the questions, because that means you at least then know what you're trying to find. If you just go through and think, well, that's a G, that's an F sharp symbol there, there's some quavers, you might waste a bit of time. However, if you're quite confident, if you've got to this part quite early on, feel free just to take in what's going on. You could think, oh yeah, 4/4 time signature, key of maybe G major because of the F sharp. What symbols do we have? So you can do that. However, if you're pushed, look at the questions first. So the first question is, circle true or false. The melody gets gradually louder in bar 3. 1, 2, 3. We've got this symbol here. That is your crescendo, and that is telling you to gradually get louder over that bar. So that is true. In the next question, tick one box to show how many times the rhythm, this, occurs, which is a dotted crotchet, we have a quaver, and then 2 crotchets. So it's just a matter of looking out for it. Just be careful, the pitch doesn't matter. So in this bar, well, it doesn't happen there. Look, the first note isn't a dotted crotchet, neither is that one, or that one, or that one. Dotted crotchet, quaver, then 2 crotchets. So look, it happens at least once. I'll make a little tally here. In the next bar, look, it's the same. Dotted crotchet, quaver, 2 crotchets. Different notes, but it's still the same rhythm. Yeah, that's what we're looking for. It doesn't happen here, and it doesn't happen there. So we get it 2 times, and I'm just going to tick the number 2 there. So the next thing is complete the following 3 sentences by ticking 1 box for each. The lowest note in the melody is either D, C, E or G. So what I like to do when it comes to things like this, I'll find the first lowest note. So the lowest note up to now is G, then it gets higher, so I'm just keeping my pen pointed to G. It then gets, well, kind of around there, so G's still the lowest note up to now, so in here, so C and A. Then we've got F, so look, here's this an F sharp note, that's the lowest, so I'm going to put my pen there. So now this is still the lowest, G and D afterwards. Then I look here, look, we've got some really high notes, we don't get lower than F. These notes don't go lower than F, that's not lower than F, but hey look, this is an E here. So there's now my lowest note. Immediately, there's a new lowest note, so there's D, keep my pen there. Then we've got some higher notes, then it goes really high. So this is my lowest note. That's how I like to go about it. I keep my pen on whatever the lowest note is until I find a new lowest note. And the answer is D, which, if we get it in view, is there. Bar 3 has the same rhythm as a bunch of other bars. 2, 5, 7 or 8. So bar 3 is here. We've got 2 minims. We're looking for another bar with 2 minims. And it's at the very end. Yeah, hopefully you can see that's pretty much obvious because it's just you're looking for notes that are minims, and look, there they are. Nothing to do with pitch. They're very different pitches, but we're not interested in that. That's not what the question's asking. It's just saying, hey, what's the same rhythm? And it's bar 8. So if we look down here, bar 8, there we go. And finally, we're on the last question. So the longest note in the melody is a quaver, crotchet, minim, dotted crotchet. So the longest note. Now, we've seen minims already. So quavers we know holds for half, crotchets hold for 1, minims hold for 2, dotted crotchets hold for 1.5. And so the longest note out of the answers is 2. So can we find any minims? And the last question was on about minims. Yeah, it had these notes here. So the longest note is a minim. So yeah, pretty straightforward on that one. And there we go, that is the end of the exam. Brilliant. So if you found all of that useful, feel free to like and subscribe. It really helps out the channel, and it means this is stuff that people want to see, so I will do lots more of it. This is the grade 1 example. If you want to get more help in terms of more questions, head on over to my Patreon. There's going to be a resource that I keep adding to. So when you add up, you'll see some instant content, but you will then get more content as the month goes on, where I'll add more things to it. So things like explanation videos, help. I will also make a post in there for if you have any specific questions where you're just unsure, maybe I've glossed over something and you want a bit more help, you can write a comment and say, hey, can you explain this? And I will make sure to answer every single one. You can join that Patreon tier for £5, and you'll get all the help for this paper, plus grade 3 and 5. I'll be focusing on grade 5 very soon, as well as some of the extra papers. So there was grade 1, A, B, C and D, where you just have different versions of this exam with different examples. I'll be going over those on Patreon as well. So if you find any of that useful, head on over there. However, thank you very much for watching. My name is Billy, and I shall see you in the next video.